$10 million. That's what I had in my bank account, but my family didn't know. So when I showed up at their doors asking for help, it wasn't because I needed money. It was because I wanted answers. Who would stand by me if I had nothing? Only one person did, and when the truth came out, the rest learned exactly what it feels like to lose everything. You know how people say money changes you? They're wrong. Money doesn't change you, it changes them. When I first checked my lottery ticket that night, I thought I had misread it. My fingers kept tracing the numbers, my heart thundering so hard I could feel it in my throat. I read the winning combination over and over again under the dim kitchen light: 13, 27, 36, 44, 52, and Powerball 18. The exact numbers I'd been playing for years out of habit. My late father's birthday, my mother's lucky number, the date I graduated high school, and so on. $10 million. Tax-free after the lump sum and deductions. It would still be enough to change my life several times over. But instead of calling everyone I knew or running to social media to brag, I just sat there. My mind wasn't filled with dreams of mansions, vacations, or luxury cars. It was filled with one haunting question. I'd learned the hard way that some people only love you when you're useful. I'd been laid off from my job 2 years before. And while a few friends had checked in at first, most faded away after I couldn't keep up with dinners, birthday gifts, or weekend trips. My family, well, they had their own track record. The truth is, I didn't just want to know who cared. I needed to know. And now, with this secret in my pocket, I had the perfect way to find out. I decided I wouldn't tell a soul about the win. Instead, I'd stage the perfect test. Over the next few days, I would visit each family member with a simple request. I need help. No mention of lottery tickets, no hints about hidden money. Just a man they thought was struggling, asking for their time, effort, or a little generosity. If they came through, I'd make sure they'd never have to worry about money again. If they didn't, well, let's just say they'd regret it for the rest of their lives. I started making my list. The first name that came to mind was my older brother, Daniel. Daniel had always been charming. If you didn't know him well, he could light up a room, tell stories that had everyone laughing, and charm his way into just about anything. But when it came to actually being there for people, that was another story. The last time I'd asked him for help, when I was short on rent after losing my job, he'd told me, "Man, I'd love to, but I'm strapped right now." Then posted pictures on Instagram 2 days later from a weekend getaway in Cancun. Still, I wanted to give him a chance. I picked up my phone and dialed. "Hey, Danny," I said, keeping my voice casual. "Listen, I've been in a bit of a bind lately, wondering if I could crash at your place for a couple weeks while I figure things out." There was a pause. Too long of a pause before he replied. "Ah man, I would, but the guest room's full. You know, storage and stuff. Plus, the kids are all over the place. You get it, right?" I forced a laugh. "Yeah, I get it." I got off the phone and put a big red X next to his name. Next up was my cousin Angela. She was the type who posted long inspirational quotes on Facebook, but would ghost you if you needed actual help. Still, she loved to talk about family being everything, so I wanted to see how deep that motto ran. When I called, I kept it simple. "Hey, Angie, my car just broke down. Think you could give me a ride to a couple of job interviews this week?" Her voice dropped into that fake sympathy tone she used when she wanted to sound caring but still say no. "Oh honey, that's awful, but I'm swamped this week. Maybe try Uber." Another red X. One by one, I went down the list. An uncle said he couldn't help because he was too busy with his golf tournament. A childhood friend claimed she'd love to lend me a little cash, but her credit cards are maxed out right now, which might have been believable if I hadn't seen her wearing a brand new designer bag in her latest Instagram post. And then, just as I was starting to feel that creeping confirmation that maybe no one would step up, I called my Aunt Lisa. Lisa wasn't rich, far from it. She worked long shifts as a nurse, lived in a modest little house, and drove the same beat-up sedan she'd had since the 90s. But she had always been kind in a quiet, no-spotlight sort of way. When I told her I'd been having a rough time and needed somewhere to stay, she didn't hesitate. "Of course, sweetheart, the couch is yours as long as you need it. And you worry about groceries. I'll make sure you refed." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Out of the dozen or so people I'd tested, Lisa was the only one who didn't ask a single question about what I could offer in return. I thanked her, hung up, and stared at my list. One name had a bright green check mark. All the rest were marked in red. The plan was now crystal clear. The people who failed my little test weren't just going to miss out on my generosity. They were going to watch from the outside as I made sure Lisa's life became everything she'd ever dreamed of. And for the rest, well, let's just say my silence would be the sweetest kind of revenge. The first thing I did after my test was cash in the ticket. Discreetly, I didn't want flashing headlines or cameras in my face. I contacted the state lottery office through a lawyer, kept my name anonymous, and had the funds routed through a trust. No big check ceremony. No public announcements. Then, I called Aunt Lisa. "Hey," I said, my voice steady but my heart pounding. "Remember how you offered to let me stay on your couch? I appreciate that more than you know. But, I think I've found another way forward, and I want to talk to you about it in person." She sounded confused, but agreed to meet for lunch the next day. When she walked into the little Italian restaurant I'd chosen, I could see the exhaustion in her face. Deep lines from years of night shifts, the faint limp she tried to hide from too many 12-hour shifts on her feet. Over pasta and coffee, I told her the truth. "Lisa," I said, "I came into some money, a lot of money, and I want you to be part of it. Not because you've ever asked for anything, but because when I needed help, you didn't hesitate. Everyone else made excuses. You didn't." She laughed at first, thinking I was joking. When I slid the bank statement across the table, her smile faltered. "Oh my God, this is real. It's as real as it gets." I said, "I want to pay off your mortgage, buy you a new car, and set up an account so you never have to work another night shift again." Her hands trembled. "Sweetheart, this is too much." "No," I interrupted gently. "It's exactly right." Within 2 weeks, her life began to transform. The first change was the house. I called her bank and cleared her remaining mortgage balance in one transfer. The relief on her face when she held the paid in full letter was worth every penny. Then came the car, a brand new deep blue SUV with heated seats, backup cameras, and enough space for her to haul groceries and grandkids without worry. I handed her the keys in her driveway while her neighbors peeked through their curtains. The last step was setting up a retirement fund for her. With the right investments, she'd have a steady monthly income for the rest of her life. But here's the thing about family. They notice when something changes, and they notice even faster when it isn't happening to them. It started small. A text from my cousin Angela. "Hey, did Lisa win the lottery or something? I saw her in a new car today, lol." I ignored it. Then, my brother Daniel called. "So, a funny thing, I heard Lisa's mortgage is paid off. What's going on there? Maybe she just made smart choices," I said flatly. His laugh had an edge. "Yeah, right. You think I'm stupid. You've been hanging around her lately. You got something going on." I didn't confirm or deny. I just said, "Maybe you should have kept that guest room open," and hung up. By the end of the month, the family chat was a circus. Theories were flying. Maybe Lisa had gotten an inheritance. Maybe she'd married a rich old man. Maybe she'd sold some rare collectible. I stayed quiet, and Lisa, bless her, didn't say a word either, but the silence seemed to eat at them. Things came to a head at a Sunday family barbecue. I hadn't planned on going, but I wanted to see the tension for myself. Lisa drove us there in her shiny new SUV, the sunlight glinting off the hood. The moment we walked into the backyard, heads turned. Angela's smile was just a little too wide. "Lisa, love the car. And that's a gorgeous purse. Is it new?" Lisa chuckled, playing it cool. "Yeah, it's new. Got it last week." Daniel joined in. "Must be nice. Things must be going really well for you." Lisa just shrugged and took a sip of her lemonade. I could feel the heat behind their stares. These were the same people who couldn't spare me a couch, a ride, or even a few bucks for groceries. And now they were watching someone else. Someone they had dismissed as just the nice aunt, living better than they were. The first crack came when Angela cornered me by the grill. "Okay, spill," she said. "Lisa doesn't just suddenly start living like this. You had something to do with it, didn't you?" I smirked. "Maybe. Why do you care?" Her tone shifted instantly. "Because, well, I mean, we're family, right? If you're helping Lisa, maybe you could help me too." I took a slow bite of my burger before answering. "Funny. I seem to remember asking you for help not too long ago." She winced. "Yeah, but I was busy, right? Busy." I patted her shoulder and walked away. The thing about revenge like this is that it's not loud. It's not about shouting, or public humiliation, or getting in someone's face. It's about letting them see the life they could have had, the comfort, the security, and knowing it's slipping further away from them every day. By the end of the barbecue, I could tell the seed had been planted. They didn't know exactly what had happened, but they knew they'd been cut out of something big. And that was only the beginning. Next, I'd give them just enough clues to make the truth unbearable. Jealousy is like mold. It doesn't need sunlight, just the right conditions to quietly spread. And I was more than happy to keep things damp and dark. The key was subtlety. If I gave too much away, they'd confront me outright. If I gave too little, they'd eventually shrug and move on. But if I gave just enough, that would drive them crazy. It started with Lisa's kitchen. I hired a contractor to rip out her outdated counters, replace them with gleaming quartz, install new cabinets, and add a backsplash that looked like it belonged in a home design magazine. When it was done, I accidentally sent a picture of me standing in her new kitchen, coffee mug in hand, to the family group chat instead of just to Lisa. Daniel responded within 15 seconds. "Whose house is that?" I replied, "Oh, just helping a friend with some renovations." Angela chimed in, "That backsplash is gorgeous. Looks expensive." I left her on read. Next came the vacations. Lisa had always dreamed of seeing Italy. but she never had the money or time. So I booked us both a 2-week trip. Rome, Florence, Venice, first-class flights, 5-star hotels, private tours. Before we left, I made sure to post a single, understated photo on my social media. A close-up of our boarding passes with Rome in bold letters. No captions, no explanations. The family chat exploded again. Angela, are you seriously going to Italy? Daniel, with Lisa, me, yep, Daniel, since when can either of you afford that? Me, since things changed. That was all I gave them. Italy was everything Lisa had dreamed of. We drank espresso and little sidewalk floated down the canals of Venice and stood together in the Sistine Chapel, staring up at Michelangelo's masterpiece. Lisa cried more than once, not out of sadness, but because she couldn't believe this was her life now. And I made sure to capture every moment. Without ever revealing too much, I'd post a picture of Lisa holding a gelato with the Colosseum in the background, or us clinking wine glasses over a sunset in Florence. By the time we got back, the jealousy had turned into suspicion. One Saturday, I got a knock at my apartment door. Daniel stood there, arms crossed. All right, he said, enough games. What's going on? I played dumb. What do you mean? Don't do that, he snapped. Lisa's mortgage is gone. She's driving a brand new car, and now you two are jetting off to Europe. You're telling me that's just coincidence? I leaned on the doorframe and smiled. Maybe it's karma. You know, you get back what you put into the world. His face tightened. So you're saying? I'm saying, I interrupted, that when someone helps you, you remember it. And when someone slams the door in your face, well, you remember that too. For the first time, I saw a flicker of regret in his eyes, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. To really twist the knife, I had to make them realize exactly what they'd lost. Not just money, but the chance to be part of something life-changing. So I started telling little stories at family gatherings. At Thanksgiving, I mentioned in passing how nice it was to have Lisa's kitchen big enough for baking pies together. At Christmas, I handed Lisa a wrapped envelope. Inside was a certificate for a Mediterranean cruise, and said loudly, "You deserve this for everything you've done for me." Every time, I caught Daniel and Angela exchanging glances. Their smiles were tight, their laughter forced. But the real breaking point came in January, when Lisa invited the whole family over for dinner in her now fully renovated home. The moment they walked in, their eyes darted to the new furniture, the sleek appliances, the glowing under-cabinet lighting. Lisa, bless her heart, just played hostess, offering wine, showing off her new oven like it was no big deal. I sat back and watched them squirm. Angela finally cracked over dessert. "So, how exactly did all this happen?" she asked, gesturing around the room. Lisa smiled. "Let's just say someone took care of me when I needed it most." Daniel pressed. "And who might that be?" Lisa looked at me, then back at him. "Someone who knows what family really means." Silence fell over the table. You could feel the unspoken accusation in the air. After that night, the calls started. Angela wanted to catch up. Daniel texted asking if I could meet for coffee. They were circling, trying to get close again, trying to get into my good graces. I ignored most of it, and when I did respond, I kept it short and cold. The power shift was complete. They had made their choice when they turned me away. Now they were forced to watch someone else live the life they could have shared in, knowing it was their own greed and selfishness that shut the door. And I wasn't done yet. The final phase of my plan would make sure they never forgot the lesson. By now, Daniel and Angela's curiosity had turned into a kind of obsession. They weren't just wondering anymore. They needed to know. The silence was driving them mad, and I had no intention of breaking it for free. One Friday evening, Lisa and I were sitting in her living room, sipping wine, when my phone lit up. "Daniel, we need to talk." I typed back. "About what?" A minute later. "You know what?" I smiled. "They're getting desperate," I said to Lisa. She smirked. "Good, they should be." I waited a full week before agreeing to meet. We chose a neutral spot, a quiet corner table at a cafe downtown. Daniel was already there when I arrived, tapping his fingers on the table, his jaw tight. Angela sat beside him, arms folded, eyes narrowed like she was preparing for a fight. The waitress came over, and I ordered coffee. I didn't rush. I stirred in sugar slowly, then finally looked up at them. "So," I said, "what's this about?" Daniel leaned forward. "Cut the crap. We know you've been doing things for Lisa. Big things. And we know it's not just out of the kindness of your heart. What's going on?" I tilted my head. "What do you think is going on?" Angela jumped in. "I think you're trying to make us look bad." I set my cup down. "No, Angela, you did that yourselves." I let that hang in the air for a moment. Then I leaned forward and lowered my voice. "Do you remember last year, Christmas Eve?" Neither of them spoke. I showed up with gifts, ready to spend the night with my family. And you told me, not even politely, that you weren't expecting me, that there was no room, no seat at the table. Do you remember that? Angela shifted in her chair. "We were just..." "No," I cut her off. "You were making it clear that I didn't matter. That I was disposable." Daniel sighed. rubbing his temples. Look, we didn't mean, you meant it enough to lock the door in my face. I leaned back. You see, Lisa didn't do that. She's been there for me. She checked on me when I was sick. She helped me when I was behind on rent. She cared. And when she hit a rough patch, I remembered that. So yes, I paid off her mortgage. I bought her a car. I took her on vacations. Because she earned it. Angela's mouth tightened. So this is all payback. I smiled faintly. Let's call it balance. Daniel glanced at Angela, then back at me. What? You're saying, if we'd been nicer, you would have helped us too? I didn't answer directly. Instead, I took a slow sip of my coffee. Actions have consequences. You can treat people like they re beneath you and expect them to be there when you suddenly need them. Angela's voice wavered. We never said we needed you, not yet. I interrupted, but life has a funny way of humbling people, and when it does, you'll remember this conversation. That was when I gave them the final blow. Not loud, not dramatic, but deliberate and surgical. I've been making some investments lately. Real estate, stocks, a few side businesses. Lisa is now a partner in 2 of them. She's building her own income streams, and soon she won't even need my help anymore. But here's the part you might want to think about. One of those businesses, I let my voice drop. It's the new company that just bought the building you lease your office in. Daniel's eyes widened. Angela froze. Oh yes, I continued, which means I'm technically your landlord now. Silence. You could feel the weight of that fact pressing down on them. Daniel finally muttered, you wouldn't. I gave a slow, calculated smile. I wouldn't evict you. Not if you keep up with the rent, but if you're late, even by a day. Well, let's just say I'm not as forgiving as your old landlord. Angela's face went pale. The meeting ended soon after. They left quickly, muttering under their breath. But the damage was done. They couldn't unhear it. They couldn't unknow that I now had power over a piece of their lives. Power they had freely handed me the moment they pushed me out. That weekend, Lisa and I celebrated. We booked another trip, this time to Greece, and I made sure Daniel and Angela knew about it. Not to brag, but as a constant reminder, while they were scrambling to hold on to what they had. We were out in the world, living. The final lesson had been delivered. Not everyone gets a second chance at loyalty. And once you close the door on someone who would have helped you, sometimes that door stays closed forever. The first sign that Daniel and Angela had really felt the impact came just 3 weeks later. I was sitting on my balcony one quiet Saturday morning, sipping tea, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Daniel. We need to talk about the office lease. I let the phone sit face down on the table. I wasn't in a hurry. By the time I replied, please contact the property management company, the panic in his follow-up message was almost tangible. Apparently, their small marketing agency had been struggling for months. A few big clients had pulled out, and they were barely covering expenses. The rent, now due to my company, was just one more weight dragging them down. I could almost picture Daniel pacing his office, doing the math over and over, realizing that no amount of wishful thinking would cover the shortfall. Meanwhile, Lisa was thriving. The business shares I'd given her were already producing a steady monthly income. She'd taken up pottery classes, started planning a charity fundraiser, and was even talking about writing a memoir. Sometimes, as we sat laughing over dinner, I'd remember the image of her a year ago. Stressed, overworked, and barely scraping by. And I'd feel that quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd helped tip the scales in her favor. The contrast was impossible to miss. Lisa's social media was filled with sunlit beaches, dinner parties, and volunteer work. Daniel and Angela silent. The few photos they posted looked forced, smiles that didn't reach their eyes, captions that sounded like they were trying too hard. Then came the charity gala. Lisa had been invited as a guest speaker, thanks to the community projects she was now funding. I was her +1. When we arrived, I spotted Daniel and Angela across the room. They were sitting at a small table off to the side, not at the sponsor's table, not in the center of attention. And the look on Angela's face when she saw Lisa being ushered to the stage. It was the perfect cocktail of disbelief, jealousy, and the slow realization that their positions in the social order had shifted permanently. Lisa gave a beautiful speech about kindness and reciprocity, about how helping others comes back to you in unexpected ways. She never mentioned their names, but I noticed Angela's cheeks flush red halfway through. After the event, Daniel approached me in the lobby. You're enjoying this, aren't you? He said quietly. I met his gaze. I enjoy seeing good people get what they deserve. Angela stepped in. So, this is it. You're just going to keep rubbing it in. I shrugged. You call it rubbing it in. I call it living my life. A month later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Daniel had been forced to downsize his office. The new place was cheaper, but in a far less desirable location. And that's when I decided to deliver the second wave of my lesson. I had my assistant draft a polite letter, business-like, formal, offering them the option to break their lease early, penalty-free, as a gesture of goodwill. It was exactly what they needed. And exactly what they didn't want to accept. Taking my help now would mean admitting that they were dependent on me. The very thing they once looked down on, they refused. A month later, they were 2 months behind on rent. When the notice finally went out, a bland legal document stating they had 30 days to vacate. I didn't have to say a word. The message was clear. They'd built their comfort on shaky foundations, and when it mattered, they had burned their bridges. But here's the thing about revenge. It doesn't always need to be loud or cruel. Sometimes, the quiet kind is the most devastating. I never yelled, I never gloated publicly. I just made sure my loyalty, my resources, and my time went where they were appreciated. The rest? That was just the ripple effect of their own choices. And I wasn't done yet. Because while Daniel and Angela were downsizing, Lisa and I were preparing for something big. Something that would take this entire game to the next level. 6 months after I walked out of that house for the last time, I received an invitation. It wasn't from Daniel or Angela. Of course not. It was from the local business chamber. Lisa had been nominated for Entrepreneur of the Year. The event was formal, televised, and crawling with reporters. This wasn't just a dinner. It was the kind of publicity that could launch a brand to the next level. I agreed to attend as her guest again. When we arrived at the hotel ballroom, I instantly spotted Daniel and Angela. They weren't sitting at a sponsor's table. They weren't even at a guest table near the front. They were in the back, wedged between a catering station and the AV booth. The invisible end of the room. I could feel Daniel's eyes on us as Lisa was escorted right up to the front, her name card printed in elegant gold lettering. The award ceremony began. Speeches, applause, polite laughter. Then, the moment came, and the winner of the Entrepreneur of the Year award, the host paused for dramatic effect. Lisa Carter. The crowd erupted. Lisa stood, radiant, and hugged me before walking to the stage. Cameras flashed like fireworks. Her acceptance speech was gracious but sharp in its undertone. Success isn't just about what you build, it's about who you build it with, and who stands by you when things get tough. I've been lucky to have incredible support from people who never treated me as a burden, but as an equal. To them, I owe everything. The applause was deafening. But in the crowd, I caught the sharp stillness of two people who understood exactly what she meant. After the ceremony, reporters swarmed us for photos. One of them, oblivious to the history, asked if Lisa would share her success story for their business feature. She agreed, but with one condition. I'd be part of it. That's how, 2 weeks later, a full-page newspaper spread appeared. A beaming photo of Lisa and me. The headline reading, and right there, in black and white, the article detailed our partnership. The investments I'd made, the growth we'd achieved, and the values that drove it all. Daniel and Angela didn't need to be named. Their absence from that story was the loudest statement of all. Within a month, I learned their agency had shut down entirely. The official reason, operational restructuring. The real reason, the clients they'd counted on had drifted toward Lisa's network, where collaboration and mutual respect were the norm. The last time I saw them in person was at the grocery store. Daniel gave me a stiff nod. Angela glanced at the floor. No words. No apologies. Just the heavy silence of people who finally understood that bridges, once burned, don't rebuild themselves. Walking away from them that day, I realized something important. Revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes, it's about construction. Building a life so strong, so undeniable, that the people who wronged you have no choice but to watch from the sidelines. And as Lisa and I stepped into the next chapter of our lives, one filled with partnerships, travel, and projects that actually mattered, I knew the score was settled. Not with shouting, not with chaos, but with quiet, undeniable success. If that ending gave you chills, smash that like button, so more people can hear stories like this. Drop your most satisfying revenge moment in the comments. I read every single one. And if you love watching karma in action, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next story I've got for you, let's just say, it's even sweeter.